Facebook, YouTube, possibly Twitch if I hit the right button, and a variety of the places. David Siteman Garland here along with Brandon Miller. What's up, Brandon? How are you?
What's up, David? How you doing today?
I'm excellent. First repeat guest in show history. So as we get started here, this is episode, by the way, number 56 of the Siteman Softball Podcast. We're going to, since we're live here, we always do a little business first. We're going to make sure that make sure you can hear us, comment, things like that as well. A couple of announcements. I'm also going to share this stream with the 2023 Siteman Pure team because our little group chat, just make sure everyone knows that we are up and rolling. Then we're going to have some fun, Brandon.
Sounds
How's
good,
that
bud.
sound? That sound good to you? All right. We'll send a messenger here. I know you're sharing it on your timeline. Spread the love that we have going on right now. All right. So there we go. We're there. One quick technical announcement for everybody that's tuning in. So if you notice, as Steven Nelson says, loud and clear, right? We can see Steven Nelson's popping up. Brandon, you could see that as well, right?
I like this format. It's really cool.
It is. It's a lot of fun. But here's the interesting fun fact that we solved. I solved the fun fact, okay? Fun problem. Was that if you're in, for example, the Siteman Softball Nation Facebook group, where it's streaming on my page and in the Siteman Softball Nation Facebook group, if you comment from there, a lot of times it'll just Facebook user. It's like a glitch kind of a thing of Facebook, right? Like you can see Farhad here. He's got the popcorn is in the microwave. Great. But some people will show up, like Rhino, who would come on here. He'd show up as Facebook user, right? I finally solved it. Took a little tech issue. It's a restream thing. That's what I want to give people the solve really quickly here if they're on there. If you don't see your name, if it shows up as Facebook user, if you go to Siteman Softball Nation, I announced that Brandon is here today on the show. We're shooting this live on November 8th, 2022. Next Monday, Alicia Bush, we're doing a special Monday of her from West Point. That's going to be a fun one. But below that, in the comments, I have a link. And if you click that link, it'll allow Restream. You just click it and then click, hey, allow Restream to show my name. Boom. So if your name's not showing up, a little extra step, but then we can make sure to give you some love, all right? Brandon, we're going to get out of here. We got some sponsor things to do, a couple other things as well. But I like to see Competitive Edge showing up here hot. I see Farhad. I see Mark Patterson. I'm sure a lot of the team is on here as well. So first of all, how are you? How's your – it's not an off season, is it? It's just no softball season, kind of, right?
I always tell people this is the busiest part of the year for like me and Mark. The softball part's the fun part for us. It's the part that comes after, and that's the hard part, and that really keeps us busy. We got a roster to develop, a schedule to make, and then we have full-time jobs too. Me and Mark both independently run several businesses, so it's just there's no off season for us. I talked to Tyler Irvine today. I know he's enjoying not having to deal with softball anymore for a while. So
right, I think players to some extent can get that sort of mental, physical break from it. Do you know what I mean? Behind the scenes, I'm always like, oh, great, it's the off season, which immediately begins new stuff for the next season. You know what I mean? So I get exactly what you're saying. That. By the way, Brandon, nosy question: what are the businesses that you're involved in?
What
businesses that you're involved in? Business.
Oh, so I'm a certified residential appraiser here in Texas. I own my own a residential appraising company. I also own a real estate investment company where we do flips.
Yeah.
My grandmother passed away during COVID, and she left my father some money, so we used that to kind of like start up a investment real estate company. And I'm already in the industry, so it just made sense to do it. So yeah, I try to manage all of this during the season, but it's not always easy. But that's why guys like Farhad and Mark and the team that we have, Steven, they're just great because we have a lot of people that can help me out if I can't get something done right away.
Yeah, it's interesting too because if you think about it, it's always an interesting question to ask softball people at this level. What do you do for a living, right? Because no matter what it is, and I don't care if you're a sponsor or a coach or a player or whatever it is, there has to be that element of flexibility to allow the travel, right? Because and I think that's going to be even more apparent in 2023 as I don't know if you have, schedule information is going to be coming pretty soon, right? But what we understand, and I want to hear your thoughts or if you know anything on this as well, is that, we're really going to be doing a lot more duels this year. That's a fact. Have you guys thought about that with your schedule for next year? Obviously it's not officially out, but just any thoughts on it?
I think you're going to see Competitive Edge play a pretty dual-centric schedule. I think we're going to probably play, if there's 6 duels, you'll probably see us at 5 of them, and then maybe like 2 extra events and ASA Supers, whatever they're going to call it, ASA Supers and ASA AA, and then, of course, Worlds. So I would say that we're going to be pretty dual-centric. It just makes the most sense from a budget standpoint for players, coaches, sponsors, all down the line. So,
yeah, we're going to be dual-centric as well. A lot of duels, and I'm sure I have a couple others as well. But I like it to a certain degree. One, I like that from a sponsorship and travel standpoint, you're getting more bang for your buck, and I think it's easier to a certain extent. Now, the negative side, of course, guys might have to get another day or 2 off work, right? Depending on who they are, what they're doing. That's a thing, but we're going to know it way in advance, right? But what I like the idea is that we can fly someone to one place and fly them back home and have 2 tournaments.
Yep.
So it's literally 50% of your travel costs, add in a couple nights of hotel rooms, and you know what I'm saying? So from a sponsor standpoint, I like it. And I think also from a people with which are a lot of softball players that have families, little kids, things like that at home. Getting a little bit more bang when you go out, maybe not as many weekends on the road. I also, in my opinion, think that's a positive.
Absolutely. And for a major team, we're expected to perform well in both duels. But like for an A team or a AA team, if you go and have one really good duel and then the other one's maybe like average, whatever, you can be proud of that. You can walk away and say, hey, we accomplished our goals for this weekend. Now the pressure is always going to be on the major teams. It's no matter what tournament you enter, you're expected to win. But the dual-centric schedule makes a lot of sense for these A teams, these B teams, just for everybody. Like you said, the family back at home, man. So.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Now, by the way, guys, today here on this live episode, we're going to be going through some juicy stuff. We're going to talk about some competitive edge things. I'll probably slip in some backstory questions about you, Brandon, as we go here, just to kind of learn a little bit more about you. And we are live, as mentioned. So if you have questions or topics that you want to make sure we cover, feel free that you can write them into the comments, and we'll check them as well. So some of the things we're going to talk about here, and then I'll get some plugs we'll talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about Competitive Edge 2023. So kind of where you guys are at right now. We're going to start talking a little bit about, we're going to go a little behind the scenes, a little non-PC stuff. Talk a little bit about, as you put this, not your words, not mine, slimy sponsors. We'll talk about some bat stuff, some drama. It wouldn't be softball without slimy bat and drama. So that's what we got to do here today on the show. So Brandon, let's start with this, and then I'm going to kind of go through a few different plugs, a couple other things as well. And also, we have a big player signing at Siteman Pure that I'll announce live here on the show in a little bit. So, Brandon, let's start with Competitive Edge 2023. Obviously, we're at that weird time now, but what can you tell us about your roster shaping up, and has anything changed, or tell us a little about the chaos?
It's definitely been an off season for sure. The way that me and Mark Patterson do things is that we're never going to have an all-out free agency. We're going to identify 2 or 3 different pieces that we want, and we're going to put the full court press on those guys. And I can be a little unrelenting or relentless in the free agent approach. I'm going to go get what I want. It's just a matter of identifying the right 3 or 4 guys. So we did add Brandon Streets. Now, knock on wood, this is all what I know as of right now, November 8th, 2022 at 2:40 p.m. But Central time. Central time, right? But we did add 2 old guys from Anarchy, and Brian Zirkle and OG Kyle Pearson. Okay. And we added the big guy Streets. If you don't know who Brandon Streets is, it looks like he's never touched a beard trimmer in his life. And then, of course, Connor Murray. We added Connor Murray, who played with MPT last year.
Yep, very good player.
Midwest guy too, right? Kansas, Missouri area.
Yep. He's right across the other side. But we consider him in our Midwestern home. We consider him a hometown guy. You know?
Yeah. And then there was another guy. Drawing a blank. Oh, Bubba Mac. Yeah, we added Bubba Mac from.
Is that how you pronounce his name? It's Bubba Mac. Okay, yeah. Now that everyone's never heard of him, so I just want to make sure that we get that rookie's name pronounced correct.
I'm not sure. We had to go get Bubba Mac though, and add him to our arsenal. Dude's like a 7-time world champion. You don't got to say much about Bubba. Bubba speaks for himself. I mean, he's not even going to say much. I've heard him say maybe like 35 words in the 3 years that I've really got to talk to him and know him. So his playing speaks for itself. But we're proud to have him over here with us. So.
Very cool. So a couple questions on this too. When so obviously competitive edge, win AA Worlds, second in the major. So it's very, very good. And now you go into this chaotic thing, people doing this left, right, or whatever. I know when we approach this offseason at Siteman Pure, we're like, okay, here's some areas we want to improve. Here's some things we want to do a little bit better, right? Where can we go what can we do? And then we find players and situations that fit in there, right? For you guys, obviously now it's just, a little bit of a letter change. We're going from an A to an M, right? An AA to an M. But did you want to add anything in particular? Were you looking for just certain types of guys? Did you want to see what was available? What was kind of the strategy to put this team together for next year?
The only real difference in changing from AA to major, it's just different faces that we're going to see more often. Different people that I got to beat, every weekend. The kind of guys that we go after, man, they have to fit into what we do here. They got to fit into the cult, right? Whatever they call us. There's a certain type of guy it takes to play in this organization, and it's a guy like Bubba Mac. And Bubba Mac is like the perfect representation because we're not ones to do a lot of talking. We just want to go out there and keep it amongst ourselves and show everybody how great we are. And I mean, it's like those are the kind of people that we target. I'm gonna target the ones that are hungry. I've heard, I can't tell you how many times this year I've heard Brian Zirkle's done. Brian Zirkle's washed up. Why would you guys go sign Brian Zirkle? I'm telling you right now, David, Brian Zirkle is going to have a hell of a year next year because he's hungry. Because he's hungry and he didn't get what he wanted last year in terms of success in competition. Look for a big year out of Brian Zirkle because he's hungry. And those are the kind of people that we target. I'm gonna figure out what it is that pisses you off, like internally, and I'm gonna dig into that until we can manifest it into wins. That's what we're trying to do over here. And it takes the right set of people to be able to set down their egos. So,
yeah, no, I get it because I mean we're that's why we align with a lot of ways we think about things, right? And this is one we 100% align on is one, having the right fit for the team. Obviously the skill, obviously the talent, we know that, right? But the right fit so that you're not bringing in a cancer, no pun intended, that we talk about cancer here. We have a cancer plugger coming up in a second for Siteman Cancer Center. But you have to have the fit and then the hunger or the chip on the shoulder. I think is a big one. Like someone that has something. You don't want someone, in my opinion, right, that's just trying to get by with another year. Yippee! They signed up. Hooray! They're around for another year. You want someone that has something to prove to somebody. Might be themselves. Might be this. Might be that. Might have been overlooked for something. Might have been screwed. Whatever it was, right? And like those players, I feel like those are the performers.
So it's funny because Zirkle sent me a Snapchat yesterday, and it's a video of OGKP lifting and working out. And the famous thing about OGKP is he's always said he's never lifted, never worked out a day in his life. It's just softball is natural to him. You got a guy like OGKP who already out hit all that money on Smash It Sports at the major. OGKP was the second leading hitter on Smash It Sports at the major behind Buddy Wolf. All that money they spent on all that hitting. And OGKP led the team at the major. Now he's more hungry. And he's out there lifting weights. We're coming to prove something, bud. I promise you that.
I like it. Now, are you guys pretty set at this point? or is there anything else you're looking for? Or are we basically we're in pretty good shape here?
I think that we look pretty good, man. We because we are going to be playing a lot of duels. We probably have more people than like the average team would have. But
How many player spots do you know offhand?
I want to say 17.
Okay, so that's a small militia.
Yeah, we do have a lot. I mean, I'm definitely the least intimidating guy in the entire team, that's for sure. So, but we definitely have a small army of guys back there. But playing as many duels as we plan on playing, I want to have 4 or 5 outfielders. I want to have 2 or 3 pitchers. I mean, those duels are grueling, and if we do what we're supposed to do in a standard duel, we're going to play 10, 12 games. So
right. And who's your pitching? Break down your pitching here real quick, and then I got a couple things we got to discuss, and we'll get right back on it.
All right, man, we're gonna roll with LC, with Watson, Lloyd, our good buddy Lloyd. LC was a guy that I targeted when I first went to Competitive Edge in 2020. So it's just with him, he's a performer, he's a bulldog, he's my guy. So I mean, I'm sticking with LC pitching. Mason and young Mason Farmer, man, he's gonna get the opportunity to behind LC to really be our number 2. But we're still gonna have as of right now, and I'm sure we're still gonna have Sean Ramsey. I've talked to Sean, and unless I can find him somewhere where he can go be the guy, we're still gonna have Sean with us. We're trying to develop him. We're trying to develop him over the long term because we think he's got a lot of potential and promise. And then when I signed Zirkle hit me up and he's like, "Hey man, I like to pitch." And Zirkle pitched at Trip Roth last year, and he shut him down for a number of innings. So you never know what we're going to do, man. We get a little crazy over here. So you may see Brian Zirkle on the mound too.
All right. It's going to get nuts. It's going to get nuts over there in Competitive Edge world. Now, really quickly here, we're going to hop right back in this, but a couple of lightning fast things really fast here, a couple on the business end. Reminder, if you're watching this right now and you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or wherever, at Siteman Softball, also on Instagram, Siteman Softball Nation on Facebook, SitemanSoftball.com/podcast. You can check that out on the Siteman Softball website. That's all the audio places. We're on, all the different audio channels that you could possibly find, Spotify, all that kind of good stuff. So be sure to check that out. New episodes every single Tuesday. And also want to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Siteman Cancer Center. Now, I always have to ask this. It's kind of a downer question, Brandon, but I always have to ask this, is that everyone's affected by cancer in some way. And I'm just curious, is there anything that you would share? And if you don't, that's fine. But just curious about how maybe cancer's affected someone or your life, or any good or bad stories about it. Unfortunately, it's just adding visibility to it.
Yeah, I mean, my grandmother, who might actually be watching right now, my grandmother Sylvia, she fought breast cancer at 80 years old, and she was able to come out successful. And then my stepmom's actually a multiple time survivor of breast cancer. And my paternal grandfather died of cancer too. So I mean, yeah, that's one of those things that I really appreciate the initiative you guys take over there with the Siteman Cancer Center. It's a big thing for us too. I had a co-ed team in 2016 and 17, and we had special jerseys made with all of our family members' names in the back that have fought cancer. And some survived and some didn't. But the fight remains. So.
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you for sharing that. And real quick, I'm going to show this up on the screen. Actually, you know what? We're going to do this one here. We're going to show this up on the screen. Brandon mentioned there also someone being saved, people that beat cancer, right? I mean, that's a big thing now because of treatments and how things have evolved. But here's the thing. It's a little scary, but I would highly recommend, if you haven't gotten your proper screenings and maybe you don't even know what you're supposed to get screened for, right? Go to getscreenednow.com. Getscreenednow.com. It's presented by Siteman Cancer Center. But here's the thing. We just want you to get screened. So meaning like if you put in your zip code, it's not in the Siteman Cancer Center area or whatever, that's fine. This is going to help you get your screenings. It's absolutely free. Getscreenednow.com. Of course, we'd love you to come to Siteman, but hey, as long as you get screened for it and get yourself help and know about it, because knowing's half the battle. So getscreenednow.com. We appreciate their sponsorship, of course, of this episode. Brandon, hopping back into it, talking rosters here. So you guys are so you're pretty set at this point. Obviously, some things are subject to change, but you guys are pretty locked in now.
I think the only thing that would change is if we have a guy like one of our backups that wanted to leave for a starting opportunity. We would never have a problem with that. We would encourage it. The biggest thing is seeing the guys go, the young guys go that would be chasing those kind of opportunities. But yeah, I'd say we're pretty set where we're at right now. I don't plan on making a lot of changes, and there's always a couple guys out there that we keep our eye on, guys that we like, guys that we've seen play over the last couple of years, and it's just a matter of when the time's right, we go and get them. Yeah, and I mean, if we want them, we're gonna go get them.
Yeah, I get it, and we've had some good conversations about that as well, about some players and different things. And actually, real quick, just want to announce this live on the podcast, a little bit breaking because I was joking with Brandon right before we go live. Everything happens right before we go live. So no matter what time you set of the day, everything has to happen then. Doorbells ring, things happen, texts, phone calls, whatever it might be. So we're almost wrapped up with our roster for 2023. As of now, actually, we only have one more contract out waiting to be signed and possibly one more after that. But big signing here today just happened. I'll have a post about this later. But Danny Larson is going to be bringing his services over here to Siteman Pure. We're very excited to have Danny this year. It's someone I've known for a while. Somewhere we want to improve, Brandon, we felt like we could improve is our athleticism, team defense up the middle, but also adding someone that could hit as well. And so adding Danny and Brent McClure in that middle is going to be a huge, huge help for us. And I think it's just going to be a great fit. Danny fits in well with our team. And also, I think we're creating an environment for him that's going to be great. So he's going to be joining us at Siteman Pure as one of our starters. And we're very excited to have him. And I'll have more about that later. I'll do a special post for Danny. And I think it's just going to be a really good place for him and a great hitter, great fielder. And that's it. Now we just got one more kind of contract out there. And then we could close the book on that, right? Until someone falls off a bridge or something. So that's good. Not the bridge. So congrats and to you guys to getting the team done. I'm very excited that we're almost done as well. So let's talk a little bit about some of the juicier things that you wanted to discuss, Brandon. I know you've been sitting there seething on the internet. Do you know what I mean? Going on. What is something like, slimy sponsors is something you said. Bat issues is something you said. Drama you said. Where do you want to start with that? Where do you want to kick off this the ugly side of Conference USSSA softball?
Well, before we get into that, I do want to say I know Daniel Larson. That's a hell of a signing for you guys. He's got all the defensive tools in the world. His hitting is definitely there. He's a better hitter than I think he gets credit for.
Agreed.
He's just a young kid, and when you have a young kid, they got to dig deep and believe in themselves, and you got to be in a right environment that will remind them that you believe in them. And I think Daniel's going to be a great pickup for you guys. He's a lefty, right?
No, he's
a righty.
He's a righty, but
he has opposite. He goes opposite side quite a bit, if I remember correctly.
He can hit it to all fields. Also, can hit with power. Also walks a lot, so he does a lot of good things. I mean, he was someone that came up really known for the glove, right? Like he made his name with the glove, right? But really, his hitting is extremely good. I mean, he's a top guy in terms of hitting. So I think he's going to put up some big numbers this year and be a great, just teammate as well. So I'm pumped to have him for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, as far as the drama and the slimy sponsors, I guess we can address that one too. It's deeper than what probably I can go into, but the thing that I get tired about in softball is that when a bat company or a sponsor thinks that they own an individual, even though I might be on the management side of a softball team, I feel like I can relate more towards the player side as well, because they're human beings. Nobody owns another human being. That's not how this works. It's not how life works. And for these guys to be, the first thing you hear is, well, your contract says this. Well, let me be honest with you. Most of these contracts are basically written on napkins and have had no attorney oversight and are just something that somebody draws up on a computer. Are they legally enforceable? Maybe. But I hate when guys come to me and say, well, this company's not letting me go. They say I have to play for their team. It's a bunch of bull crap. I mean, to put it mildly. And I mean, it's like there's no like disguising it. Like Smashing Sports, they sign players and they think that they own them. They think that that the players are lesser individuals. And I don't know what the answer is, except maybe like eventually adapting some kind of players union, as silly as that sounds. But like the players don't have enough representation or enough knowledge of how the internal stuff works. It's no different than any other professional sports league. These guys are signing things. Half the time the sponsors aren't coming through on their parts of the contract, but then they can't get out when the rubber meets the road. It's ridiculous. I mean,
I'm curious about this. A couple questions on that. So have you seen this? Is obviously you don't like it from just the way it works, right? But has this also affected your organization in some way? Like, was there meaning? Like, I'm just curious. Like, meaning, like, for example, a player you talk to, and he's owned elsewhere, causing shenanigans or problems, or is it just something that you're generally seeing with the sport, or both?
Not a whole lot of things are going to affect our team. Mark Patterson's a very smart individual. And we have enough intelligence and enough desire on this side of things to get things done that we want done. I mean, if we want somebody, we're going to get them, whether they signed your Route 59 diner napkin contract or they didn't. I mean, we don't care. But where it bothers me is like these are my friends. Like, it's not just people that come and play with me. It's my friends that are getting held hostage and can't go play somewhere else. All because these millionaires decided to sign a player and they think they own them. Like, no, sir, you don't own a human being. That's not how this works. If somebody wants to play somewhere and their contract is up or their contract has not been honored, they should be able to do that.
Well, with a question there then. So I understand. Let me make sure I get it right. Okay. So let's just say person X signed by, you said, millionaire Y. Okay. Now, are you saying that while they're under contract with them, they could go anywhere they want, or they should be able to? Or are you talking about more they're no longer under contract, or the contract's over? And I know it's back of the napkin stuff you talk about too. Like we do real contracts with real attorneys doing real things. But I get it. Or are you saying that? I'm just trying to scope like what's an example of something that you're like, God, this is just ridiculous.
Let me. I think what I'm trying to get at, and I want to agree. I want to address something that AU said. Adam Usry's on here. AU, great ball player, great guy. He said sponsors will and should always hold the cards because without them, there is no upper level softball. And that's correct. I will agree to that point. But what I will not agree to is that a sponsor thinking they own another human being and a sponsor trying to use, well, we're going to enforce this contract. Well, but let's say the sponsor puts out a contract, but then the sponsor's saying that you can't go play with a certain team in 2023 because you're signed with us. But nowhere in the contract does it state that. So why would someone listen to that then? Right. So, and they're not. The players are not. Like,
right. I'd be like, oh wait, I'm not under contract, so bye.
So what it is it's the bat manufacturers. Okay, the bat manufacturers sign these guys to 2 or 3 year deals, and that's not how slow pitch softball works. You almost have open free agency at the end of every year. Like DW's addressed that several times, right? So they're signing these guys to 2 or 3 year contracts, and they're trying to force the players to do things that are not in those contracts. And the only and what they're thinking they're going to do is, I'm a millionaire. You're under contract. You're going to do what I say. And the players like, well, I signed it. I guess that's the players. I don't want to say they don't know better because that's not what they're here to do. They're here to play.
Right.
It's a bunch of millionaires and billionaires up here sitting on their high horse saying, you're going to play wherever I want you to play because I have money. And if you don't, I'm going to take you to court. And a lot of times that veiled threat is good enough. Right. So that's the slimy stuff I don't like.
Yeah.
You have Smash It Sports saying that, oh, this person can't play with this team because it says it's because we have them under contract. Those are not mutually exclusive, right? Yes, they have them under contract, but the contract does not state they have to play for your team. So guess what? They're going to play wherever they want to.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like, what's knock on wood, I haven't been exposed as much to this as you have. Do you know what I mean? And it's interesting because, the way I like to run things is the way I would want them to be ran. Do you know what I mean? And that's where I discuss some things in the off season. If player want to go here, player want to go there. And, it's really, I don't want to say it's a two-way street, but there has to be maybe some more standardizing of rules or how things work because, sponsors are committing to players are committing to sponsors, but it has to be clear on what, for when, how long, and how it works. Right? Like if you don't have that, then we can just make up stuff. Do you know what I mean? And so what's interesting is when we were working on, contracts for our team, if something had to be a little bit different or something like that, we'd work that in there. Do you know what I mean? Because also I'd have to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's just a lot of distrust, unfortunately. There just is. Because people, I can't tell you how many people come to me like battered. Meaning saying, hey, this person promised this and that, and this happened and never happened, whatever. And I always say to them, listen, you could believe our, not the longest track record, but you can believe our track record that we're going to do what we're going to say, and I'll put it all in writing. Do you know what I mean? To guarantee that as well. But it's interesting that there's a healthy skepticism. I don't know if you want to call it healthy or whatever it is, where people are like, man, there's just been a lot of running through the ringer. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah. See that you mentioned the distrust, right? So there's a lot of distrust at the highest levels of softball. And it's because of what I just mentioned. It's because there's some bad apples out there. There's some bad apples as players. Now hold on. I will say that too. The players do not do themselves any favors. A lot of them do not do themselves any favors. But there's some bad apples as sponsors too that think they can just pay X amount of money for a player and they own that player. And then every year we're gonna jump from team to team with this player, and that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. That's not how this should work.
I do agree. I mean, real quick, I do agree with me. That whole thing is super strange to me. Like the idea that not a contract between, say, player and team or sponsor and player for that team, but the idea that these contracts where it's like, well, yeah, he and I've heard that actual word belongs to, which again is the exact same thing that you just said at the very beginning of this, that we don't anybody. No one should blind anyone, right? But yeah, that one rubs me wrong where it's like someone signs with, and again, two-way street. There has to be integrity on the sponsor end, and also players have to understand what's going on as well. Do you know what I mean? And they need to. But where I've heard, this guy signed with this guy for 3 years, and this person will dictate where this person plays. That to me is a little weird. You know, I understand signing with a team. You have a contract for competitive edge. We have one for Siteman Pure, right? Other teams have this as well. That's different. But the idea that you sign with someone and then now they're your sort of forced manager agent to determine where you're going to go. I mean, that to me doesn't seem right.
Right. I mean, and here's the thing, if the player is in full awareness of what they're signing and they're not having to deal with, legal threats to their phone, nobody wants to hear, I don't care who you are. Nobody wants the prospect of a legal threat to their phone or wants to have to read it or wants to have to,
right.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Even if that threat has no foundation, nobody wants to deal with that kind of drama all the time. We'll just take you to court or we'll just make sure you can't play this year. Now let me set the record straight here. I am in no way saying that the players don't cause these problems for themselves most of the time, or that the players aren't responsible as adults to read the contract. They have to do those things. But I feel like we beat that. That's been beaten. That's like beating a dead horse. We already know that the players need to read the contracts, and if they don't do that, it's on them. But I'm saying what bothers me is the word when you said belongs. A player belongs to me. I never understood that. Like but
is that language? Like, I know it's not good language, right? Very bad language, wrong language, right? But would you feel better, or if instead of saying a player belongs to me, right, a player's under contract with me, does that change it for you, or is that not at all? Or is it still the principle of it?
I think sponsors and bat manufacturers also have an obligation. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if it's a legal obligation, but I think they have an obligation to be honest and forthright with the players that they're signing and making it very transparent what their intentions are and not signing them to these, like I said, paper napkin agreements that last for 2 or 3 years when it's never discussed with them. It's never, I mean, yeah, we can all read something, but lawyers are talented individuals. Lawyers get paid a lot of money for a good reason, right? They know what they're doing. They know how to sneak verbiage in there that a layperson may not understand. The typical softball player is not going to go out and hire an attorney to read through their contract. That's the nature of the beast. And like I said, I am by in no means letting all the softball players off the hook. I just feel like we beat that one, senseless. Like we all know there's some guys in softball that have ruined it, some athletes that have ruined it for everybody else.
Yeah. And listen, I think all we can do you're a manager, sponsor, do you know what I mean? All we can do is try to do it the right way and try to rebuild trust with people, in my opinion, because you can't control, we can't control what team XYZ does. Do you know what I mean? Like there might always be sleazy, right? But you could try to say, hey, listen, we're going to uphold our word. We're going to uphold, everything that we do. And maybe you can start to build that trust back, with certain people. And it's a very interesting thing. And I think multiple year contracts is something to an individual is something that's just not good in general. But it's a very interesting topic. I'm sure we could go down the rabbit hole way more on this, but I want to ask about something else too, Brandon. Touchy subject number 2.
Okay.
Touchy subject number 2. This is the touchiest of the touchy, right? Bats, right? Boy, nothing dramatic about the bats, right? That have been going on at all. So, I want to tread. I don't want to say even tread lightly here. I just want to talk about it. Is that so? The word has been that there was some issues with some bats from different companies. Suncoast has been brought up as one, right? That need to be corrected for next year, however that might work. And a lot of people are, you've seen the message boards.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? A lot of people are just laying into people about, well, these bats were illegal. These were that. This was that. And I want to go to, one of the horse's mouths here. Like, you're not making the bat, but I know you're obviously heavily involved here. And I just want to see anything that you could share and kind of where we're going with all this.
I mean, I can tell you that Suncoast is going to be in compliance next year, as far as I know. I don't know why they were out of compliance this year. I'm not a bat engineer. I consider myself an intelligent person, but I don't know the first thing about being an engineer of a slow pitch softball bat or a fast pitch softball bat or whatever. That being said, the people that are dealing with this daily have kept Mark Patterson in the loop, and then then I get kept in the loop from there. And I mean, from what I know, it's like it was a small issue and it's being addressed. I think. I mean, you want my honest opinion?
Fake opinion. No, yes, I want the honest opinion. Honest opinion. Let's go.
Okay, David, who won the Men's Major World Series?
MPT.
I'm going to turn the tables on you. I'm going to ask you.
All right, go ahead. MPT.
MPT. Who was second?
Competitive Edge.
Who won the AA?
I believe it's Competitive.
Okay. Who won the A?
Who won the A was Anarchy.
From your knowledge, what are the three bat companies that are under the microscope right now?
Juno.
MPT.
Suncoast.
Competitive Edge.
Anarchy.
Did you hear Rawlings or Easton or Mikan or anywhere in there? You did not. Yeah, that's weird. Yeah. I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm not a bat engineer. I can't speak for the compliance of the bats. That's all Suncoast. That's all MPT, Juno, Anarchy. That's all something they got to do. All I know is that those bats, all three of those companies make a really good product. Easton makes a really good product. Mike and Worth, Pure, they all make really good products. I think anybody that wants to, and I'll whoever wants to say this and have this debate with me, I'll be glad to do it. But I think if people are going to make public comments, they should really look in the mirror and really look at that ring case and that trophy case. And they should really consider all my rings, all my championships, all my success. I never had one teammate that swung a legit cut bat. Now let's be honest here. Suncoast, the issue is not that they were cut open. They're not shaved. Our bats were not shaved. They were not cut open. That's not the issue.
Right.
So anybody that wants to come to me in public and have this debate, let's do it. Because none of the Suncoast bats were cut or shaved or found to be cut or shaved. That is a fact. Now, there was a bat company and another team that had some shaved bats, but we won't talk about that. But what I can say is people that live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, David. If you live in a glass house, do not throw stones because I got a black book, buddy. I got a black book. And if these guys want to keep going at it, we'll go at it. We'll blow the top off of all of it because you're not going to sit here and tell me that these guys that are so pissed that they didn't win this year don't have some rings and some trophies in their little trophy case that weren't attained by some people swinging non-compliant bats or whatever they want to say. I mean, not even non-compliant, just straight up shaved. So, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, like Farhad just said on here, that's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, it's interesting that you see, there's these sort of upstart companies, right, that are smaller companies, right? The Junos, the Anarchies, Suncoast for that matter. Do you know what I mean? Pure. I'm sure I'm forgetting some other Monster. There's these companies that are, going here, and it's interesting that you have kind of that established companies. Do you know what I mean? The Rawlingses and things like that. And, if they're not getting the performance, and I don't know, it's a weird spot because this year, I think people were talking that the best bats were not from some of those larger manufacturers. Do you know what I mean? And that's interesting.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? To see, and I can't say about this one was this decibel point off, and this one was that, and that one was cut, and that one wasn't, and whatever it was, right? But I do say, here's my question for you, Brandon. This is a bigger question. I'd like to hear everybody else chime in on this as well, and maybe I have some thoughts on it as well. How can you avoid this? Like, how can you fix this? I don't want to say call it a distrust situation. It's a situation of like, well, these are incompliant. These aren't, like, is it something? Should there be new standards of how bats are tested? Should it be something else? Like, how do we avoid having this? Or are we just going to have the same conversation about another company next year?
It starts at the top, man. Stop getting your feelings hurt when you don't win. If you lose, be better, not bitter. I got that. Arjun Dodds, my buddy Arjun. I've known Arjun Dodds since we were probably like 22 years old, and he's from my area. And Arjun has always said, "Be better, don't be bitter." And that's the problem, man. It starts at the top. You got a lot of bitter people out there. You got a lot of people that hate Mark Carucci, that hate Flip Washington. They hate John Williams, but guess what? Those dudes got it done. Those are your world champions. I don't care if they were swinging a Juno bat, a Suncoast bat, a Mike and Worth. Those are your champions. They did it better than us. They did it better than anybody else in the country. And so for them to, and I don't even listen. We got second at the men's major. We didn't win. So whatever. But to devalue what they did, and NPT is one of our biggest rivals. We talk a lot of cash shit against them, and every single time. Sorry, Mom. I know you're probably watching, but we talk a lot of crap every time we play them. But you know what? Hats off to them, man. Like, that's one of our biggest rivals. They beat us twice at the men's major, and that's their title. Like, to devalue what they did because you're bitter, because a company's bitter, it's crazy, man. It's crazy to try to make something up put something out there that just plain and simple doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't 75,000 bats across 3 companies that just magically were non-compliant. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What it is it's money, it's greed, it's egos. They're all in the way of each other, and it's like
right. There's always
man.
every year though. Every year, whoever wins, it's the accusation, of this or that. Do you know what I mean? They had special bats. They had reverse bats. They had only when they were hitting, they threw special balls out. Like people could come up with some crazy stuff. Do you know what I mean? And I think, I think people are better off. Obviously, U-Trip's in charge of the standards and upholding those, and that's something we can't even comment on because that's what they're supposed to do. And I'm sure that they're going to take all this stuff into consideration and whether they update it. But you got to do it as a player or as a team owner, as a sponsor, as a manager. I mean, you just got to go out there and be like, hey, we're trying to win. Start worrying about everything else. You're going to go down a bad rabbit hole. If you start worrying about, like, if we're playing you guys and I'm worried about what bats are swinging, we've already lost the game, in my opinion.
Look, here's the thing. I got two challenges to put out there. First challenge is, look, if you're at the top of the game, if you work for one of these competitors that's bitter, look yourself in the mirror, all the success you've had, and tell me that you've never had one person that didn't do things the right way or had a legit shaved bat. If you can answer that question, know that all of your stuff is legit, then whatever. But show me. Then bring me on to this podcast and show me. If Rawlings wants to bring somebody up here and debate me, let's do it. Bring whoever they want to. Don Cooper, put him up here on this podcast. Let's talk. It's not going to happen, no. It's not going to happen. Now, second, if you're Resmondo or Smash It or whoever you are, and you want to give us wood bats, let's have a best of 5 series with wood bats. I'm not saying we win or lose, but let's just do it. If you think it's the bats, let's just do it. Give me a 3-game series, a 5-game series. I'll put up whatever money I can afford to, but give us wood bats. We're not afraid, and you're certainly not going to devalue, not you, David, but the powers that be. You're not going to devalue the 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week that my guys put in working out, hitting BP, eating correctly, watching their bodies. You're not going to devalue that and try to claim some non-compliance BS and devalue what MPT Juno did and what Competitive Edge and what Anarchy did over some bat BS because your guys didn't perform.
I hear you. I mean, you might drop it right there, my friend. I mean, that's the thing, take on it. I'd love to hear everybody else's thoughts on it, but you're hearing it directly from Brandon, who's going to pull, what I like about you, Brandon, no punches. We talked about this before. I said, hey, let's just go on. You want to talk about it all? Let's do it. Do you know what I mean? Because I think also discussing these things hopefully can help it. Maybe something, even if it's just one more person's now aware of something and decides not to say something or cause less drama or whatever. You know what I mean? Like if we can affect a couple people, that's probably a good thing. I would think with this. Yeah,
I mean, it's no disrespect to Rawlings either. Rawlings and the other companies. Look, I don't mean any disrespect, but I gotta have the back of my organization, the back of my guys. I know the work my guys put in. I know what kind of work they put in. Even the ones that aren't with me no more. The Jason Branches of the world. Jason Branch doesn't just wake up out of bed every day and hit 750. He puts work in. He maintains his body. He's a good hitter. Like you're not gonna devalue the championships that my guys won and the success my guys had because you're bitter. You know what I mean? Like if we're swinging shaved bats, cut them open. If you want to say we're swinging shaved bats, cut every single one of those damn bats open and show me.
I hear you. But yeah, Brandon, again, we could go on for hours with this, but I like with our, the Siteman Softball Podcast, I like to keep it a little bit compact. Do you know what I mean? Keep it compact so that people coming back for more every Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like we don't want to have a 96-hour show, even though you and I could probably sit here for the entire day and probably talk about this. But I mean, like, I think we're just scratching some of the surface. But I think I want to wrap it up here for today. But do you have any kind of final thoughts? Anything else you want to share? Any hugs you want to give out before we kind of wrap up here and roll on from here?
I mean, you always got to shout out the sponsors. Mark Patterson with Competitive Edge. He's the best sponsor in the game. He's an incredible human being. You y'all see my posts, but he bought me and Farhad tickets to the Astros game the other night to watch them clinch. So shout out to Mark Bernius. We got another sponsor group coming on this year out of Arkansas, and that's Brian and Misty Hill. So I'm sure Brian and Misty are
that's Aristotle, right?
No, I don't think that's Aristotle. I think that they helped out.
Okay, there was some kind of something there. I just remember hearing that.
That wasn't working out. They weren't kind of getting the roster input I think they wanted, and so they're going to end up coming with us. So shout out to those two great individuals, like great salt of the earth people. Shout out to Suncoast, man. I mean, listen, we're rocking with Suncoast until the bitter end, and they've treated us right over there. Lee Trotter, Rob Roop, they've treated us right. And so I take it personally when somebody attacks their product. And, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of old scout posts about this. But, shout out to my haters, too, because I wouldn't do this. If I didn't have haters, if I didn't have something that motivated me to do this, dude, I would run my companies and I would spend all the extra money I could make without having to devote all this time to softball. And I would have a house in Colorado and a house in, Mykonos and all these other tropical places.
Ooh, Greece.
So, shout out to my haters.
Yeah, shout out to the haters. Brandon, it's funny that you mentioned this. Was that, back in the day when I was doing a lot of business training and things like that, and people that were building online brands, right, of different things online. Haters, everyone tracks haters, right? Everybody. Only if you're relevant, right? Because if you're not, nobody cares, right? So what's interesting is that we used to have a joke among some of my coaching programs and education programs online that you get to share your first hater. Like people would actually share a screenshot. They're like, look what this person said. And we're like, everyone congratulated them. Do you know what I mean? It was like, you have one, you're going the right way. Like you moved someone enough emotionally to be pissed off or hate you or do something. And you know what I mean? For every one of those, there's going to be 10 that love you. So that just kind of comes along. But sometimes the bad voices are occasionally the loudest, but hey, welcome to the world. It's all good. Do you know what I mean? So Brandon, I always appreciate you, my man. It's always a blast having you on as our first two-time guest, but I have a feeling it's not going to stop at two.
No, I'm definitely always down, David. I love what you do here. I love you giving me the opportunity to vent and show off all the great success that Suncoast and Competitive Edge have brought me personally and everybody else. I appreciate it, bud. And just kind of like a closing remark, if we'll see the rest of y'all out there, but don't shake my hand anymore in person if you're one of these ones on the Old Scout. And that's all I got for you. All
right, there we go. Brandon Miller. So this has been the Siteman Softball Podcast, episode 56. I want to thank Brandon Miller. I want to thank Siteman Cancer Center. Remember, getscreennow.com. Be sure to check that out. I'll have more later from our newest Siteman Pure teammate, Daniel Larson, our newest signing. I'm very excited about that. And we'll see you next time. Remember, SitemanSoftball.com/podcast. And Brandon, I have to say this on the way out. Congratulations on your success.